So now that we've got Moho up and running, let's look at how we create a new project. We just go to File, New, and it automatically creates a new document for us. Now this is just going to be the default settings for the project, so let's make sure it actually has the settings that we want by going to File, Project Settings. So the most important thing to set right from the start is the resolution. You have a list of options here on the drop-down. I'll choose 1080p, or you can put in custom dimensions here if you want. 24 is good for the frame rate. And if you know how long you want your scene to be, you can specify the start and end frame here, but you can always change this later too. Next, there's the background color. This is what will show up as the background when you export if you don't have background artwork of your own covering the stage. Then there are depth of field options here. This is only relevant if you're going to build your scene with 3D depth. With this on, you can have a certain level of depth in focus, but have layers of artwork in the background or foreground blurred based on their distance from the camera. The focus distance is the distance from the camera that will be in focus, and focus range is how wide that level of focus is. Max blur radius is how blurry the out of focus parts of the scene can be. You might want to just build your scene first and then come back and set these so you have a better sense of what the values should be. Then over here you have render style settings. You can get an idea of how these affect things based on the preview down here. You can try these out, but I recommend not even bothering with these because they don't give you a lot of control. Now let's come down here and look at these settings. Sort layers by depth is again if you're building a scene in 3D. So say if you have a layer that's in your background and you push it farther away from the camera along the Z-axis, with this checked, that layer would automatically get moved down to the bottom of your layer stack in the Layers panel. Sort by true distance means it will base the sorting on the origin point of the layer rather than the contents. That will make more sense when we get into the 3D features. I'll just leave both of these off for now. Next, there's anti-aliasing. This smooths out the little jagged stair-step pixels that show up along the edges of shapes. You probably want this on. Noise grain will add a film grain effect to your scene. How strong it is depends on this value. And pixelation will run a pixelation effect on your scene when it renders. Stereo rendering actually gives you the option to render a 3D movie, either to watch with red and blue 3D glasses or on a VR headset. So when it renders a 3D movie, it renders one view for each eye, and eye separation changes the amount of distance between the two views that it renders. That's obviously a very special case, and again, it's only relevant if you're actually building your scene in 3D. Then there's extra SWF frame. This would only be needed if you're going to export in a Flash SWF format, but you probably won't be doing that in this day and age, so I'm going to leave that off. So then once we have our settings the way we want them, we can come down and click the Save as Defaults button. Now, whenever we use File New, it will make a document like this one. Now I'm going to save the project file. I'll just put it in the Moho content folder we created. So strictly speaking, that's all we need to get started, but there's one more important feature that you might want to use to keep your project organized. Come up to File, New Workspace. Now a workspace is just a series of folders on your hard drive to store all the files you plan to use for your project. There are 4 default choices on the drop-down. Let's look at Simple. And here in the preview, you can see the folders it's going to create. There can also be subfolders within these. If you check this box, it will also create a new blank Moho project along with the folders. Let's hit OK, and I'll have it create this workspace in the same folder where I saved my project file. Now notice that we're actually in a new Moho project, the one that I just created along with the workspace. And if we take a look at the project settings, we can see that it did in fact create it with the defaults that we set. And if we look in the Moho content folder where I saved it, we can see that we do in fact have the file structure from the workspace that we chose. Now if you want to create your own custom workspace with just the folders you want, That's one of the things you can store in the Custom Content folder. To get there easily, we can just go to File, Open Custom Content folder, and then at the bottom we have Workspace Templates. And you'll see these are the 4 templates that we saw before. All you have to do is make a folder here with the name you want for your template, and then make all the folders inside that you want your workspace to have. For example, I could copy the sequences workspace and rename it episodes, and then rename the folders inside to reflect that. Then if I go back to Moho and go to set up a new workspace, Episodes is available on the dropdown. So Workspaces is a great way to make sure you're being consistent with how you organize all your files. Next, now that we have a project, we're going to run down all of the key elements of the interface here. We'll do that in the next video. I'll see you there.